Hey there friends, Katie here from Shangri. Since you're not able to come to us, we wanted to come to you. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most beautiful things that you're going to encounter outside, flowers. Achoo! Alright friends, since we're going to be talking about flowers today, we're going to use this giant flower model so that you can easily see what I'm talking about. Now a flower is special just on its own. It's part of an angiosperm, which bears the reproductive parts that are necessary to produce seeds and fruit. When we're talking about flowers, the first part I want to point out is a part of the flower called the sepal. Now the sepal is this bottom part here, and I know you've seen it because if you've ever seen a flower bud that's closed up, that's what's containing the flower and keeping it from being harmed, but also keeping it from drying out. Those are called the sepals. The second part that I want to point out, and this is the part everyone knows, and I'm certain of it, those are the petals. And now flowers can have different number of petals depending on the flower, but petals serve a unique purpose, and that the sense is that they're very bright and colorful. Do you know why they're very bright and colorful? Because they have to attract pollinators. That's right. So the petals are very brightly colored so that things like insects and hummingbirds, bees and butterflies are attracted to those colors, and they want to come to that flower, which it's going to later need to help spread its pollen. So you'll see on the petals that there are sometimes distinctive lines or stripes, and think of that almost like a runway for an airplane. The insects see that and it knows it's got to go right into that plant so it knows where to land. So now not all of the colors though on petals can be seen by the human eye. Some are infrared and can only be seen by the insects. So the other two main parts that I want to talk about when we're talking about plants are the pistil and the stamen. Now the pistil is comprised of the female reproductive parts, and the stamen is the male reproductive parts. The next part we're going to talk about is the pistil. Now the pistil is the female reproductive parts of the flower. The pistil is made up of three main parts, which I'm going to show you on our model here. So first I'm going to take a petal off so that you can get a better view. But when we're talking about the pistil, it's made up of the first part called the stigma. The stigma is very sticky. That's where the flower receives the pollen. The second part is called the style, and the style leads you from the stigma, it holds the stigma, and goes all the way down into the ovary. And the ovary is where the part of the flower where the seeds develop. The last part of the flower that I want to tell you about is called the stamen. And the stamen is the male reproductive parts of the flower. And the stamen is made up of two different parts. The first one is the anther. And I know you've seen anthers on plants before, on flowers before. That's that part that's covered in pollen. That's what made me sneeze earlier when I sniffed that bottle brush. And the part that's supporting the anther is called the filament. And together, those form the stamen. Now that we've learned all the different parts of our flower using our big flower model, we're actually going to dissect a flower so that we can see what it looks like. Now the flower we're going to dissect today is called an evening primrose. And you can find these growing all along the road, along the ditches. There might be some at your house, but this is a pretty easy flower to find. Before we start though, I want to do a very quick reminder about some other parts of the plant. So here we have the leaves. We have our stem, and of course we have our flower. All right, now as we get started, we're going to zoom in on my hands so you can actually see what we're doing. All right, so first thing we do when you find your flower is you want to gently break the flower off from the stem and from the leaves. And that leaves us with our flower. Now using our flower model, we talked about the different parts. So this part on the bottom of our flower, if you can see that, that's called the sepal. That is that protective part. That's what keeps our flower from getting damaged or from drying out. And so not every flower has a sepal that you can see, but every flower starts out with a sepal because it's protected when it's that bud. So we're going to go ahead and pull off our sepals and set them on our paper. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove our petals, and we need to do it very gently. So now this flower, this evening primrose, has 4 petals. And remember, those petals might have those beautiful lines, those bright colors, so that it lures the insects into the flower. Those insects are what spreads the pollen from flower to flower. All right, now when you pull off your petals, you might get some of those anthers and filaments stuck to it, and that's okay. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back and collect all of our anthers and our filaments and put them on our paper. Now, I don't know if you can see this or not, but this evening primrose, ooh, it's got a lot of nectar too. So this evening primrose has a lot of pollen on these little anthers. And this evening primrose, it has 8 anthers total. And so you can count those on your flower dissection. All right. So on our flower here, remember this part here is the anther that's got the pollen on it. And this part here is the filament. That's what's holding the anther in the flower. Now, flowers can either be self-pollinating or cross-pollinating. Self-pollinating means that the flower can fertilize itself. Cross-pollinating means that it needs pollen from another flower in order to become fertilized and to have seeds and ultimately produce fruits. So either way, the pollen still needs to move. And so that can be done with the help of pollinators. And that could be wind, it could be butterflies, it could be bees, it could be hummingbirds, anything that gets that pollen from one flower to another. Now we've done our filaments, our anthers, and our petals. Now we're going to do our pistil. Now remember, the pistil, that's the female part of the flower, and it's really sticky because that's what the pollen sticks to. And so when that pollen sticks to the pistil, it ultimately fertilizes the plant and produces seeds down in the ovaries. We've talked all about the flower, which is that specialized part of that angiosperm that bears the reproductive parts, so seeds and fruits can be produced. We've talked all about the parts that make up the flower, the pistil, remember, which is the stigma, that sticky part, the style, which leads down to the ovary where the seeds develop. And we talked about that stamen, which is the male parts, which is that anther and that filament that connects it to the flower. Now, flowers, their main goal, not just to look beautiful for us to see, but it's also to attract pollinators. So the flowers' main reason for being there is to get the pollinators to visit from flower to flower so that pollination can occur. If pollination doesn't occur, we won't have delicious things that we love to eat, like oranges and apples and peaches and pears and avocados and all different types of delicious things. Any seed or fruit comes from a pollinated flower. All right, challenge time. So I have 2 different challenges today. The first one, check with your adult and see if you're able to find a flower that you can dissect yourself. Parents, there's a sheet listed in the resources to help you guide your student. If you don't have any flowers that you can dissect, I want you to go outside and look and search for as many pollinators as you can possibly see out in your yard and make a list of them. There are hundreds. We'll see how many you can find. All right, we'll see you next time. We miss you. We're proud of you. Stay curious.